Well, good morning everybody, and a really warm welcome to this morning's webinar, Community and Dementia, Creating Better Lives in Lanarkshire. This is a pretty special one for me because actually we're in my hometown today, so I'm delighted to be able to open today's event. My name's Alan Crockett and I'm the Director of Evidence and Influencing for the Dementia Programme at the Life Changes Trust. Your chairs for today will be Annette, Balas and Helen, Jameson, who will start their duties very shortly. I just wanted to give a quick background to today's event, which is one in a series of Creating Better Lives regional events that the Life Changes Trust has been running since 2018. So far, we have visited the Highlands, Grampian, Orkney, the Western Isles, Ayrshire and Arran, and then more recently online, Edinburgh and the Lothians, Fife, and last month, Tayside. For each of these events, the Life Changes Trust works in partnership with local stakeholders, people living with dementia and unpaid carers of people who have dementia, as well as others in the community who support individuals, families or projects. These partnerships help with the planning and development of each event so that they are meaningful to local communities and are led by local communities. For the last few months, the Trust has been working in partnership with the lovely organisations and people of Lanarkshire to design this conference. From this work, the Trust has been learning about what matters to people living in Lanarkshire who have dementia, are unpaid carers or who provide support. So for example, what are the gaps in services and provision? What have been the struggles during the COVID pandemic and what has worked really well? And what do people living with dementia and unpaid carers say is most important to them? These events are designed to help support local areas and all of us to think about how communities can uphold the human rights of people with dementia and unpaid carers. So that's a bit of background from me about our regional Creating Better Lives conferences and why we do them. And we're really happy this morning, as I say, to be hosting today in Lanarkshire. So that's enough from me just now. You'll hear a bit more from me later on. I'm now going to hand over to the extremely capable hands of our co-chairs for this morning's conference, Annette, Balas and Helen Jameson. Welcome both of you, and over to you.
Good morning everyone and welcome. My name is Helen Jameson and I'm very pleased to be co-hosting today. I'm the minister at St Andrew's Church in Carluke, where we've worked for some time closely with people living with dementia and unpaid carers, both in Carluke and beyond.
Good morning, I'm Annette Balas and I'm also delighted to be co-hosting today's conference. My experience is as an unpaid carer for my father, which I did until recently. I live in West Lothian with my husband and children, and my father lived in South Lanarkshire. Margaret Brown from the Alzheimer's Scotland Centre for Policy and Practice will also be joining us to chair the panel Q&A session later this morning.
Before we start though, we have a few housekeeping points. There are 2 short breaks, but if you need more time away from your screen, then that's fine. This event is being recorded. It will be on the Life Changes Trust website soon, so you can catch up then if you miss anything. We will email everyone when this is available.
During the webinar, if you would like to ask a question of the speakers or the panel, then please feel free to do so. You can put your question in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. There is also a chat section. Please use this if you have any general comments. You will see in the chat function that there is a drop-down menu. This gives you the option to share your comments with the panel or with everyone. It's always nice to share, so please remember to select the With Everyone option. Thank you for bearing with us. So now on to today's event.
This morning, we will be seeing some films about local projects from across Lanarkshire. These films highlight the work and support that is still being delivered during COVID. We will be hearing from The Haven, which is a charity helping families, carers, and those with life-limiting illnesses face the future together. They have been doing a huge amount of work with people living with dementia and their families.
Anna Clements from Alzheimer's Scotland will be talking with Ian and Eugene, both of whom are carers for their partners who are living with dementia, about the importance of peer support and being able to connect with others who have shared their journey. We'll also hear about the work Helen and her colleagues from St Andrew's Church have been doing to support people with dementia and carers, not just from Curluke, but beyond.
We will also be sharing what people in Lanarkshire say is important to them and what support they need in their own communities. More of that later. So lots to get through, and of course we will have a question and answer session later this morning.
But we're going to start today by talking about local priorities here in Lanarkshire. In a few moments, we're going to hear from Dan Serridge from the Village Storytelling Centre, who have been running sessions with people in Lanarkshire to find out what's most important to them in their communities and what their priorities are for creating better lives. These sessions are called storytelling sessions, and they work by using creative methods to support people to tell their story. Storytelling is simply a gentle, practical way to do this. Dan will tell us more about these sessions and what came out of them, but first, let's find out more about how storytelling actually works. At the Trust's Creating Better Lives conference in Ayrshire and Arran, Sam Rowe from the Village Storytelling Centre explained.
Good morning, everybody. I'm not Arlene, I am Sam, you might notice that. I work for an organisation called the Village Storytelling Centre, and over the last year we've been working with the Life Changes Trust to develop this storytelling approach, which you might have heard being talked about. And so I just want to tell you a little bit about the process that has led us to the priorities that you'll find on your table. We are an organisation that uses storytelling to support communities to find their voice. And we've been working in collaboration with another storyteller called Claire Hewitt, who has a background in the Living Voices project, which worked in care homes across Scotland, gathering stories from the residents there. And so our workshops, which we've been instigating, they normally begin by gathering everyone together, and we always start off with a song and a traditional story. And that just gives a feeling for, this is a different kind of meeting. Claire put it really nicely, I think, when she said people think they're coming to a meeting, and what we try to create is the atmosphere of gathering around a kitchen table just to share. But that story will often have thematic connections to some of the concerns that the group might be carrying, and we'll use that story then to kind of start off leading the conversation. It might be a story about building relationships, or it might be a story about community or a supportive society, and we'll let the kind of ball start rolling with that. So it kind of starts the conversation off from a kind of different and unusual place. Sometimes that conversation is enough. Sometimes people have come to that meeting kind of with a lot that they wish to share, and we just kind of give them the space to speak and to listen. But also we have the option to kind of like move into a next stage, which is to actually use a story creating process to support people to share some of their thoughts and feelings. And that normally revolves around creation of a character. So if we're working with a group of carers, we might create a fictionalized character who shares some of their experiences, who we could imagine being a member of the group that we're sitting in. And that character gives people the space to kind of project onto it, onto him or her, some of their own experiences, which gives them the chance to regulate their own level of personal disclosure, but also find the space perhaps to share some things that they might find painful to kind of like to talk about if there was too much personal focus. So for example, in another area, we talked about family conflict. So I don't know if that was happening in the participants' lives, but by being able to talk about this character, we were able to really explore those issues in a really open and kind of supportive manner. The other approach that we might use then is also to kind of introduce an overnight bag that belongs to a person perhaps living with dementia. And in that bag, there'll be all sorts of thematic objects that we've picked up from the previous discussions that we've had. And we'll pass those around the participants and ask them to talk about those and what it might mean to this character who owns this bag. So that might include doctor's letters or a driver's license, which is now out of date, or a set of keys. We might ask who helped pack that bag. And that gives people the space, again, to just sort of talk about some of the things that they have been, that are important to them through the prism of this fictionalized storytelling process. We listen to all these conversations, and then we distill down what we hear into the priorities kind of afterwards, working along with the Trust itself. And then obviously this is handed on to you at the conference. And this is the first time I've been able to attend the conference, so I'm really excited to see this next part of the process and how what all we've discussed over the last couple of days is going to go forwards, and just to hear your discussions. I'm going to hand over to Anna now, who is going to just introduce some of those priorities that we've identified. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you to Sam for telling us how storytelling works so that people can tell their own story and have their voices heard. As we said earlier, these sessions have now been running here in Lanarkshire. After the sessions, all of the conversations and stories help to form a set of local priorities based on what people have told us. I'm going to hand over now to Dan Serridge from the Village Storytelling Centre to tell us more. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you very much, Helen, for introducing me today. I want to say that it's a real pleasure and privilege to be introduced by Helen, because she came up regularly during the sessions that we ran. Firstly, she was there for 2 of them, and in the session she wasn't. She was mentioned as being an absolute linchpin for the Lanarkshire community, and so for me it's wonderful to have her introducing me today. As mentioned, I'm Daniel from the Village Storytelling Centre, and Sam did a wonderful job there of describing the work that we do, and he did it in such a succinct way that I don't wish to jump on that too much. I'm just going to extend it by talking a little bit about the power of story and how we used these techniques and stories within the specific sessions of Lanarkshire, and what that meant then for the priorities. So for us, stories are the currency of human connection. We use stories and we encourage people to tell stories through very simple and easy techniques, but we find that there's no more innate desire to speak than when you hear somebody tell. When somebody shares a small tale, whether it be big or small, joyous or tragic, there is a desire for someone to then jump in and offer their story, their thoughts, their empathy, and it becomes a space by which people can swap and share and change and offer beautiful things. Furthermore, we find that story, and we like to call it this, story is art. And we all have art inside us. We all have these little moments of art that deserve a plinth, a gallery space, a stage to be heard. So we're offering people who have these pieces of art a space where their voice can be heard. And it's our job to listen and direct them into to tell these tales. So how does that work then in the local area, and how does that work in this context specifically? So as mentioned, myself and my colleagues have been working in Lanarkshire delivering a number of sessions. The ones to tell you about here are 3 key ones, including work with unpaid carers, sessions with unpaid carers, a session with professionals and volunteers who support people with dementia and support people who support people with dementia, and then also a 3rd training course that we deliver with professionals to help the legacy of the program, so perhaps they can begin to take on some of the techniques and ideas that we use. As mentioned in your packs, there is also ongoing work happening at the moment with people with dementia. We're currently engaged in a process of working with people and gathering their ideas, gathering their priorities, gathering what matters to them. And as soon as we receive that feedback, they'll be fed into the priorities that you'll see at the end of this presentation, and then they'll be disseminated out. So just to make sure that we know that that's continuing. So how do these sessions work, and why story, and what's so powerful about it? I find that, as Sam mentioned, we begin with something quite magical. We begin with something quite fantastical. And we see the process as something like a concentric circle, where we start quite far away from the issue a little bit. We start in a safe environment where people feel like they're sitting around a living room table, as described by Sam. And then we bring them closer to the issue. In Lanarkshire, we offer a story. We offer a story across the whole country, but in Lanarkshire, we offer a story of giants. And I want to just speak a bit about giants briefly, because we find it's a really interesting jumping off point for people, because it's a powerful metaphor. And in particular, it's a powerful metaphor in dementia contexts. We find the giant is literally huge. It's everywhere. It's massive. It exists, and we know that it's there, and it's huge. But at the same time, it's often shunned, feared, disrespected, isolated, vulnerable, and misunderstood. And we find that this metaphor can be a very powerful jumping off point and powerful link to how people may feel when they're caring. You can be weighed down and feel huge with your responsibility. You can feel big with the weight of what it is that you do and the sheer busyness of your day. But at the same time, there is a feeling that perhaps you are isolated and your voice isn't heard and you're at a distance. And then with these stories, with those giants, and then with other metaphors within a story, we explore what it can mean for people. What do these stories mean? And for us, stories only gain meaning when people bring their heart to them, when people share how it impacts, how it makes them feel, and how much meaning they can garner from it. After telling a story, we move on to talking about care and care lists. We make a care list with the group. And what I'd like to do for you is to just give you a flavor of the kind of content we receive back and how powerful it can be, with a very simple exercise where we ask people to share, what does care mean? And what I've got here is just a list of responses from the sessions that have been amalgamated, so that we took all those ideas, we put them together, and I'm just going to read those out for you now. And it's this: it's love, it's caring, it's listening, it's support, it's continuity, it's family, it's understanding, it's living with change management, it's a sense of humor, it's understanding a person's likes and dislikes, it's meeting the needs of the people we serve, it's building relationships, it's non-judgmental, it's trust, it's boundaries, it's the touch of a hand on the shoulder, it's the person who says, come and get a coffee. It's knowing someone has taken responsibility, has listened, has come to help me. It's care and patience and providing and planning and looking ahead. It's anticipation. It's a network of help. It's an act of kindness. It's relationships. It's individuals. It's overcoming fear and not disappearing. It's never being left alone. It's a network of friends. It's respect. It's 24 hours. It's stress. It's doing the tiniest things. It's the tiniest little thing. It's caring. It's caring. It's love. It's love. It's love. And it may seem odd to reflect those back, and it may seem odd that those words repeated at the end, but it was mentioned, and it was mentioned, and it was mentioned, and it feels incredibly important to give that the space that it deserves. And what I find with that list is maybe a series of terms that are hard to grab and hard to concretize and understand. But the moment that gets me, and it was the moment in the session, was this talk of it being a touch on the shoulder. We can hear these terms all we like, and we can understand that people are being listened to or helped or not helped. But what does that really mean? And we can all identify and feel something at the thought of a hand on our shoulder. The power of that image and the power of the sensory experience of that is where storytelling and story can have a powerful effect and can really make us listen to you and hear what matters. Like I said at the beginning, stories are there as artwork and good stories hold a mirror up to our world and our lives and can help us change it for the better and can help us learn more about the experience that people are having. So with this care list, we then move on to talk about character. And we apply some of those things to a new character, as Sam mentioned. And I'm not going to sit and talk about the characters that were created and during those sessions, But what happens is, through a process of thinking about their internal experience, feelings and ideas and pressures and external pressures, and developing a world for them, we begin to see a really rich character, because everybody in those workshops are bringing their own experience, their own feelings, and their own rich history and heart to this character. And what starts to happen, and it doesn't take long, is people realize that they're not talking about this new character. They are indeed talking about themselves. And that's what makes the end of the session so exciting, is that they've created somebody that could be sitting right next to them, and they can look them in the eye and think, that could be me, or it could be someone I know. And so after that, we talk about priorities. We talk about what matters. And from those conversations, from the distance of the story, moving in, we begin to get an understanding of what really is important for people in the areas, and for everybody who's involved in this particular area, and indeed Lanarkshire. And what then that information, with that information, the trust takes all our stories and the beautiful quotes that come out, and develops 5 key priorities that are guided by the people who have come to the workshops. Other things are there too, but these are the 5 things that get mentioned often or get mentioned regularly. And what I want to do for you now is read them out. And I'm not going to say too much about them straight away. I'm just going to read them as they are, and give space for you to think about those and see if they resonate with you. So priority 1, it is crucial that agencies are linked up and talking to each other. There are lots of good organizations out there, but when there is no clear joined up thinking, where is the effective signposting? People can fall through the cracks, and that is a critical issue. And then there's a couple of quotes here. I'm a district nurse, and I knew what needed to be done, but trying to get it done was like hitting your head off a brick wall. I can't imagine how it is when you don't understand the process. I found there was a nothingness of information. That came from an unpaid carer. Priority 2. It is imperative for organisations to listen to the carer and the person with dementia, as more often than not, the most important voices and opinions are not being heard. I felt I had nobody to turn to, from an unpaid carer. I thought I was lost, from a person with dementia. Priority 3. Unpaid carers and people with dementia felt concerned that there was no longevity of support, and they were constantly being asked to share their story again and again with different agencies, with little communication between organisations to support them on their journey. We want a consistent approach and to know who to turn to. Who is going to listen to me? They can feel caught in a hamster wheel. That's from a staff member. This is priority 4. It's very difficult for carers to take time for themselves and balance their work and caring responsibilities. It can be overwhelming. It wasn't that I wasn't willing to do it, because I wanted the best for my dad, but I felt I had to fight on every front. The idea of giving up my independence was inconceivable. And priority 5, there can be very real problems with getting a diagnosis, how long it takes and how many people are involved, and the delay in being offered any kind of support. This often means that people can reach crisis point before they get support. Racked with grief and anger about how much Dad suffered. It would have been really helpful to have had a face-to-face meeting with someone who could have explained what services are available and how to access them in the early days. Now, as you can see they are the 5 key priorities, and I don't wish to spend time dissecting those too much, but they clearly show for me and represent for me that sense of a voice, of needing a voice, of communication, of feeling outside of what people might deem to be a normal situation, just like the giant within the story that we told. And what we find from those priorities is, and from the sessions in general, is that what comes up again and again and again is that need to be heard, to be listened to, and to try and have those moments where people feel like they are being listened to. And it was very clear within those sessions themselves that people responded to the giant character and placed that on the characters that were created. I want to say, just to sort of slowly wrap that up, there's a lot more to be said about those priorities, and they indeed, like I said at the beginning, will change and develop because we are ongoing work with the people with dementia, and their feedback is so vital, and what they offer matters hugely, and we want to make shifts and changes as they come in. But just to talk more about the session and the impact that can, the participants that are part of it, I find, and I've been saying a lot about these sessions, that they have an incredible power. I love and I look forward to doing them, and I feel incredibly privileged to be the one that's being asked, as do my colleagues, being asked to go in and offer just a small process of story that can elicit and encourage people to feel like they've had a space to share and to talk. But it's all very well having the space, and it's all very well offering that. But what makes it so rich and what makes it so honest and true is the experience and the power of the people that come to the sessions and the workshops. What makes it so special is that the people that are experiencing the challenges are deep rooted in the service, are very experienced carers, have expertise that give them such a heartfelt response to these processes. They make the characters rich, they make them come to life. And it's often in these sessions, there's a real heartfelt feeling that comes out from people. There's often cracked voices, there's often truths that are spoken and stories that are told that make people yearn to share their story too. And it's a privilege for us to be able to do that. And that's true across all the areas we've worked in, and indeed it is true of Lanarkshire as well. And that's where I want to finish. I think I want to finish with the knowledge that impact on us as well, and the impact that you've had on the work and how we develop the work is absolutely vital. So thank you for everybody that came along. Thank you for everybody who shared. I hope those priorities do justice to the voices and the stories that you shared on the days that we had together. And I hope they are a real springboard to more development and more space for you to share. And I think, just to wrap up, after spending all that time with people, I do realize that ultimately the work that you do, whether it be paid or unpaid, it's love. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand you back over to Annette, who's going to continue with the conference. Thank you.
Many thanks to Dan. That was so powerful, really important to hear. I'm sure you'll all agree. I actually participated in one of Dan's sessions for unpaid carers, and it was wonderful to have a safe space to share and be heard. And I was grateful for that opportunity. Thank you. Now, our next section will focus on some local projects and take a look at how they had traditionally been supporting people living with dementia and unpaid carers in Lanarkshire, how they have adapted during the COVID pandemic, and how they are planning for the future. First, you'll be seeing a familiar face as we hear from St Andrew's Church in Carluke. They have been working with people living with dementia and their families since well before the pandemic and have continued to provide support and connection throughout COVID, not just in Carluke, but beyond. To tell us more, Helen Jameson, who is of course the Minister of St Andrew's Church in Carluke, is joined by Alice and Jessie, both of whom cared for their husbands who had dementia, and by Carol Topper, who has a diagnosis of dementia, and her husband, Malcolm.
I'm Helen Jameson. I'm the Minister of St Andrew's Church of Scotland in Carluke, and since 2012 we've offered support to people living with dementia and their carers, and we've developed to offer a whole variety of activities, and we work in partnership with a lot of different organisations, including things like the Haven and Playlist for Life and Hard for Art. I'm joined now by Carol and Malcolm, who come along to the drop-in support at St Andrew's. Carol and Malcolm, why did you come to the drop-in?
We came to the drop-in through the Haven at the 4th. Malcolm will tell you what that is.
The Haven is a centre for people with lifelong illnesses, and they introduced us to St Andrew's, and from that day on we never looked back.
Totally true.
What impact has coming to the drop-in? What impact has that had in your lives?
Well, when I was told that I had dementia, that was me. Oh my God, I'm dying. And I wasn't wanting to speak to anybody. I wasn't wanting to do anything. I wasn't wanting to go anywhere. And the lady for the Haven was going to be at the dementia club that day, and she says, please come along. So we went, and I stood at the doors, and I was like, oh my God, look at all these people. And I was backing off and saying, right, Malcolm, home. And somebody came and got me at the door. And how glad am I, because my life has totally changed. I absolutely love my dementia group, and I've got new friends, and you can talk to Helen and any of her helpers about anything, and I absolutely love it.
Our circle of friends has increased tenfold since joining the club, and as Carol said, we just love coming along. It's such a happy place to go to.
That's great. Carol, one of our high school volunteers that we had with us for a wee while, sharing at the drop-in, had trained with us as a music detective with Playlist for Life, and they helped you put together your playlist. I know you've got a whole lot of things on your playlist. You might want to tell us maybe one of the songs and tell us a wee bit about why that work done by Playlist for Life is so important.
Jacob helped me with my playlist, and he helped me understand it, because at first I was just picking songs that I liked, but it's you have to pick songs that actually mean something to your life.
Right.
And one of the songs that I picked on my playlist was Tom Jones, It's Not Unusual, and I picked that because my darling Malcolm took me to see Tom Jones. And where did we go?
Kelvin Grove Bandstand.
Kelvin Grove Bandstand. And I was right next to the stage. And it was absolutely brilliant. And I've wrote, to go with my playlist, I've wrote stories to go with the songs, so that when I get worse, my family knows the stories that goes with the songs. So I've done an extra bit, but it's absolutely wonderful, and I play my playlist if I'm sad or just any day. I can put my playlist on and I'm singing my wee heart out, and it just makes you so happy.
That's wonderful. That's great, Carol. What a wonderful thing to be able to do, and brings back special memories for you and helps you remember the things that have been really special to you as well. That's great. I know that you also come along to Heart for Art, which St Andrews have funded some partnership work along with Crossreach, which is the Social Care Council of the Church of Scotland. But we offer a weekly Heart for Art session, and you've come along to Heart for Art. Would you like to show us one of your paintings? Wow, that's amazing. Carol, can you tell us a wee bit why Heart for Art's really special? Did you ever paint before, and how does their painting help you?
I have never painted in my life apart from emulsion in the rose. And they had a, what do you call that thing where you show your pictures?
An exhibition.
Aye, one of them. They had an exhibition in the church, and the people were saying to me, "Oh, Carol, you should go to that, you should go to that." And I said, "There's absolutely no way I'm going to that because I can't." The paintings were absolutely amazing. Anyway, they talked me into going, and oh my God, I love it. On a Thursday, I'm up, I've got my shower, I'm first in the door, and morning! I've got all my paint sauce set out, and oh, it's absolutely brilliant. I just go into my own wee world, and you just focus on your painting, and it just makes you so happy, relaxed. The helpers are absolutely marvellous, and the teacher, what's my teacher's name? Maureen. She has got the patience of a saint, honest to goodness, and honestly, it's absolutely amazing, and I cannot believe the things that I'm painting. I like doing flowers. I do flowers all the time, and I just can't believe what I'm painting. I just totally love it, and I do my painting at home now too.
Yep.
So it's absolutely wonderful.
And it's been good because that's been one of the things that we've been able to offer still during lockdown. We've done a bit of one-to-one Heart for Art, haven't you? And you've taken part in that, Carol, and done some work at home and some silk painting too.
Yeah, I do my flowers with acrylics, but I've been introduced to silk painting, and that's absolutely wonderful as well. I really like that. It's a wee change for the acrylics.
That's lovely. Yeah, that's great. And you've shown us some wonderful paintings, Carol. You've just done amazing things, so it's been lovely. Yeah. Thanks very much for sharing with us about some of the things that are really important to you and to Malcolm as well. That's great. Thanks very much for that, Carol and Malcolm.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm joined now by Alice and Jessie, who came along to St Andrews Drop-In Support in 2015 with their husbands, and they've gone from being carers to now volunteering with our project. Alice and Jessie, why did you come to the drop-in? I think I've actually said a wee bit of that, but you tell us why it was you decided to come to the drop-in.
Well, I can't follow Carol. Goodness sake, that was marvellous. My husband was diagnosed in 2013 and he was getting progressively worse. And by 2015, life was getting a bit difficult and I felt isolated and different things. And somebody had suggested to go there. And I'm like, no, it's not for me, not for me. And my daughter popped in one day to have a look and she said, I think we should go. So we plucked up the courage and we went, because Peter's a very, very sociable person. He loves company. And in the house, he was very difficult, but out socially, he was fine, absolutely fine, because he loved company. So we went one day, we were welcomed, greatly at the door, felt comfortable, a bit nervous. Walked in and I seen Jessie, who I kind of knew to see, but didn't know, but seeing a face she knew made a difference. And we sat down, and ever since then, I can't tell you how much it helped us. Our life changed, actually, it really did. Socially, because you feel a bit isolated when you're at home all the time with somebody with dementia. And I met so many nice people. Not that you want people to go through that, but they understood, so it was nice to have it in common. And I can't put it into words how much it helped me. And Peter absolutely loved it. He absolutely loved it. He really did, because as I say, he was a very sociable person. And what else can I say? It was absolutely fantastic for me. It was, I don't know, I was really at the end of my tether. I just thought, I can't cope anymore. What am I going to do? Blah, blah, blah. I had a say apart from the family, and then I went there. Socially, it was brilliant. We went to trips, we went everything. We went to the museum, and he loved it, and I loved it, and the company was amazing, and it made such a great difference to both their lives.
Alice, coming to the drop-ins obviously had quite a big impact, obviously, on your life, Jessie. I'm assuming it's a similar kind of story for yourself, really, is it?
Oh, aye, it's very something the same, because Johnny was in the hospital, and then I brought him home to nurse him and that, and I brought him up to the drop-in, and he got on great here, and then he just turned out, and that was her. But he loved coming up to drop-in, and it was the nurse that told me about it.
Right. You've both gone through kind of getting to know one another really then at the drop-in. You didn't know each other particularly well, but both of your husbands died just within a few months of each other. And did you find that it was still helpful to have that connection with us after that, after they had died?
Definitely. It was good to have still the connection with you.
You still come up.
Still come up.
Yeah. And you then came along to the Heart to Heart bereavement support group that we offered as well, and became part of that. And now you've actually moved from being carers, as you were, to being volunteers with us now. So, you know, what kind of things do you do now to support other people that have been in the same position as you with your volunteering with us? What kind of things do you do? Would you like to share that with us?
Me?
Me. He's desperate to talk.
The volunteering, I always said when I retired I would do volunteer work, but I just kind of fell into this because I've seen how much it helped me, and I wanted to pay it back a bit and help. And I can't explain it, just helping people. You get so much out of it yourself. It's so satisfying, it really is. Because you know what they're going through, do you know what I mean? So you can sit and listen and sympathise and just give them a wee advice if you can, if they need it. I just love helping. I get so much out of it. It's as much for me as for them, really, you know, because I get so much out of it. And what would I be doing anyway, you know what I mean? Because you're lost when they go, because you're looking after somebody 24 hours for so long, and then there's just nothing.
That's right.
So going back, it was absolutely marvellous. I wouldn't say saved my life, but it certainly helped me with my life,
Even the bereavement thing, that really helped us a lot.
Even marvellous. As I say, Moira still phones to see how you are, even though we can't meet out. No, I can't. St Andrews has been absolutely brilliant. I can't thank them enough for everything I've done.
Well, we're glad that we've been able to help you, but you're now, as you said, paying that back for us, and you've also trained as walk leaders with Get Walking Scotland, Get Walking Lanarkshire rather, with Pass for All and Get Walking Lanarkshire. So because the two of you decided you could go for walks together, you formed your wee bubble during lockdown, and you've been walking together, and you trained as dementia-friendly walk leaders, and we're just about to start a wee dementia-friendly walk, aren't we? And you two are going to lead it.
Yes, yeah.
Don't know where we'll lead them to, but we'll lead it. No, I'm looking forward to it.
Which is great. I mean, that's great that you've done that, and you've come on such an amazing journey, and that you're willing to share that with us and with other people.
It's
really good.
As I say, you don't want people to go through it, but just meeting other people that is, you know what I mean? Just knowing you're not the only person makes a difference, do you know what I mean? Because it's a lonely place to be. It really is. It helped marvellously. The social side, going to dinners, going to places, marvellous.
Thanks very much to the two of you. That was really good of you. Thanks for sharing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I really enjoyed talking to Alice and to Jessie and to Carol and to Malcolm. And you would hear there in the background also that Carol and Malcolm's cockatiel Bruce was able to join with us and joined in the conversation too. So that was really nice. And I'm just sorry that they can't be present with us today because of other family circumstances, sadly. It's always a great pleasure and a privilege, absolute privilege, to be able to share with people and hopefully just to offer a little bit of support on what can be such a very challenging journey living with dementia, and also to offer people a bit of support during a time of bereavement. And afterwards, sadly, I've had a number of funerals that I've conducted for folk who shared with us at the drop-in. But it's always a privilege just to be able to share with people at such a difficult time. I cared for my mum, who also had dementia, and looked after her until she died. So in a way, I can identify with some of the challenges at least, and along with what is a wonderful team at St Andrews who are completely supportive of all that we do. We really enjoy reaching out to provide whatever support we can. And laughter and humour, as you will see and have heard today, hopefully, is part of what we can offer to help, and hopefully we can share that journey with people. Well, that's absolutely enough from me. It's now time for us to have a short break, which you will see from the programme is for 10 minutes. Time to have a cuppa and some time away from a screen, which I know perhaps some of you were really glad to have. And when we come back together, we'll be hearing from other projects here in Lanarkshire that have also been supporting people with dementia during the pandemic. Please remember to put any comments that you have in the chat section, thanks to those of you who have been putting them in already, and any questions that you have in the question and answer session, the Q&A section down at the bottom of your screen. Enjoy your break, and I'll see you in 10 minutes.
Welcome back, everyone. It's not a particularly nice morning outside. We hope you got a nice hot cup of tea or coffee, and preferably with a biscuit to go along. And also a wee stretch of your legs during that break. So we're now going to hear about another important project here in Lanarkshire. The Haven provides support to many families across Lanarkshire, including those who are dealing with dementia. They offer help so that people living with dementia can live in their own home and in their own community for as long as possible. They provide many different services to fit the needs of the individual. Let's hear from Brenda, Caroline and Louise about how they are helping people face the future together.
I'm Brenda Parker, the Haven nurse.
I'm Caroline Litster, and I'm the Children, Young Person and Family Coordinator.
I'm Louise Gardner, the Service Manager. The Haven's here for you. We're here for individuals and families who are impacted by life-limiting illness. We know that each individual will have a unique experience journeying through these times, but one thing we're confident of is that it's better when we're facing the future together. And facing the future is exactly what we've been doing this year with the development of our digital support services. Over the last year, as well as supporting all of our existing clients, we've also provided services to 132 new clients. All clients now receive their support digitally by telephone calls, video calls and emails. We developed our digital services immediately in response to the impact of COVID and the temporary closure of all 3 of our Haven centres in line with government advice. It was essential for us that Haven support continued for our vulnerable clients. The development of our digital services over the last year has been really exciting for us. Those that have been diagnosed with an illness, those caring for someone in a family who has an illness, those who are sadly bereaved, have all been able to receive continuing support via our digital support activity sessions with no breaks in our services at all. We've also worked really hard to develop our services for dementia clients, their carers and their families this year. We're really proud of what we've achieved. It's really important for us when we're developing and delivering any of our Haven specialist services to do this with our clients and alongside the communities that we're part of. Here's Brenda and Caroline to tell you more about the Haven digital services and the difference they're making.
As the Haven nurse, the first thing I do is have a telephone or video call with each person, the person with dementia, their carer or family member. We call this our WIN model, and it stands for What's Important Now. I work with the client to identify their strengths and resources, ones that they already have, and we build a programme of support together from there. One that is going to help them self-manage their situation, help them meet their outcomes and make a difference. A programme of digital support might include emotional and practical video and telephone support sessions with me, support activities like signposting to other organisations, Morphit digital gentle exercise session, relaxation sessions, seasonal craft sessions, and also self-management toolkits. Each practical toolkit is different, tailored to each individual and family. Some contain self-management activities, others creative arts and crafts, or a mixture of both. The toolkits help people to move toward their desired outcomes and goals and are used alongside the nurse support and activity sessions. Some clients are looking for help to do things that help them manage their situation better, and that when in the house gives them something to work on out with the Haven digital sessions. Some want us to be able to improve their coping skills and resilience and to have a break from their thoughts and situation. Some people find it reassuring to talk to a nurse, ask questions and be supported emotionally. For carers, the digital support sessions can give them a break, which is really important to them too. They can have time to themselves when their loved ones are having their digital session. Sometimes it's helping a carer move through their grief and bereavement. Over the last year, the digital support sessions have helped reduce isolation and feeling of loneliness and have kept families connected to support services. Accessing the video and telephone calls and other activities also help with this. I've been working with a family who moved over to digital support last year. Here they are now to tell you how Haven Digital Support has continued to help them.
So thanks so much for coming to spend some time today to chat with me. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about you and about why you thought the Haven was able to help you.
It was actually the CPN nurse that referred us to the Haven. And before COVID, we attended Haven in Forth. We had support sessions with Brenda. We came to the Lifting Your Spirits group, relaxation group. And they really helped us both to be able to cope and manage. We didn't really know much about the Haven. We thought it was more to do with people with cancer. Didn't realise the vast range of things that they do.
Well, that's super. That's super. So you made contact with the Haven. You came over to our centre in Forth then when it was open, and you joined in with some of the sessions there, and realised, yeah, absolutely, dementia is one of the life-limiting illnesses that we do work with. So tell us then. So you moved over to the digital sessions then when COVID kind of started. Tell us about the digital sessions and the activities that you did with Brenda.
Well, we were really worried at the start of the pandemic because we were shielding and we saw nobody other than a 5-minute visit from family when they dropped things off. And I don't know what we'd have done without Brenda. Sorry, I really don't. She was an absolute lifeline to us because she gave time not only to talk to me, but she also would talk to Tony, and Tony was able to talk to her and had confidence in talking to her, that whatever he said, he spoke to Brenda about it. And whatever I said to Brenda, I spoke to Brenda about it. So it was, in some ways, a pressure valve for both of us. She's been an absolute lifeline. She could always make him smile and have a chat with him about anything from trains and our cat to whatever. And you know, when she was talking to him, I could have a sit. I could sit and have a coffee in peace and quiet and just relax a bit.
Yeah. So really important for you both, I'm hearing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Not at all. Take your time with it. Yeah, so the digital sessions really did help you.
Absolutely, not to yes. I don't know where we would have been without it. I really don't.
And what kind of things did you do then? What digital sessions did you take part in where you were able to get that support?
Well, she would phone us and we would have a video call and we could sit and chat, and she was never rushed. She chatted to us or we chatted to her for however long it took. Never felt as though she was trying to rush us off. And then she also organised the Crafty Hen, where we were with another group of people doing ceramics, Christmas baubles and things.
Fantastic.
And Tony sat and joined in that one really well. And in fact, actually sat afterwards for a good hour afterwards, still painting and things, which was really good.
Super. And what difference did that make to you to be able to go to one of the Crafty Hen sessions?
It lifted us both. It really did. It was great to see other people, and you could talk to other people. And I mean, we didn't talk about dementia. We just talked about what we were doing. It was coming up to Christmas, the pandemic, how that had affected us all. And it was just really nice to talk to other people and see other people. And also Brenda sent us some egg cups for the grandchildren to do.
Fantastic.
So my son and I sat with the grandchildren and did them here. And Tony came through to see what we were doing and stayed for a bit and dipped in and out of what we were doing. And then, of course, the children were busy showing him what he'd done.
Yeah.
So that was really nice, because it can be a bit separate sometimes when the children come, because he can find them noisy.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes he'll just disappear into the bedroom out of the way if they're getting noisy and they're getting on his nerves, which that's fine. But that was good that he was there with them and you know, seeing what they were doing and telling them how to mix colours. Because he could remember things like that. He could remember that blue and yellow make green, you know.
Yeah.
It was like that. So it was good. Yeah, really good.
Activities brought the whole family together and you could have those conversations and all join in.
Definitely.
Is there anything else that's important for you to say around the support that you've had at the Haven?
Just that I would really like to see it keep going, and I'd love to see it opened back up. We were just getting comfortable going to the Haven, because at first it was very strange. And you don't know what to expect or what people are like and all the rest of it when you go somewhere different. And certainly for Tony, it can be very hard to get him to go anywhere. But he felt really comfortable there. And, you know, while I was having the relaxation class, he was having somebody to chat to. And he would sit and blether away about trains and where we've lived. And, you know, he was an aircraft engineer, so we've lived all over the place. And that was really good for him, you know. And it's this kind of stimulation and need that he hasn't had this last year.
Children and young people may need some support in helping to make sense of what's happening following a loved one's diagnosis of dementia. We help them to express their feelings and understand their emotions in a safe, non-judgmental environment that also provides them with encouragement and reassurance. Our current support services for children and young people include one-to-one digital support sessions, digital activity-based support sessions, signposting to online resources, and bespoke toolkits which are created depending on the needs of the individual. These can include therapeutic storybooks specific to dementia, activity workbooks to help process some difficult feelings, emotions journals, and some therapeutic arts and crafts activities. Now, back to Louise to tell you some more about our latest developments.
We've not been able to implement the new digital services for dementia and wider families on our own. As well as working with our clients to do this, we've also been working closely with other organisations to make this happen too. Partnership working has always been at the heart of the Haven. This year it became even more important to us throughout the pandemic, when new services were being developed, others changed, paused or stopped, and as staff moved around. We still wanted to know how to connect our dementia and wider clients quickly to wider community services that might also help them. So we set up a series of digital share and learn sessions so that we could learn about how other organisations were working, the services that they were now delivering, and how we could quickly signpost our clients to them. We shared our information on the Haven digital services and developments at these sessions too. How could we complement other services for people living with dementia as a step up, step down and sideways signpost partner, and as a way to bridge service provision and promote continuity of support across community services. We did this digitally with the Lanarkshire community psychiatric teams, the carer centres, and we trialled the approach with some Lanarkshire care homes too. We continue to maintain really strong signposting relationships with them. We were also delighted to work with Kerry Connections this year, a dementia community hub in Angus in this way too, as a partnership approach and with the support of Leader funding to deliver a dementia connected and supportive communities project. This was a project aimed at connecting communities to specialist Haven support and wider dementia services across rural Lanarkshire and Kerrymuir and Angus. A total of 299 people participated in the project, including local businesses, our health and social care partners, dementia cafes, Alzheimer's Scotland, dementia groups, and support in local churches like St Andrews and Carluke. The pandemic struck partway through the delivery of the project, so it too had to transition to a digital approach very quickly. Key learning for us in this project was how digital support can remove geographic boundaries. Never did we imagine being able to deliver Haven services so easily to Kerry Connections members in their own homes. This too was the same for our dementia families in rural Lanarkshire, where travelling distance, time and cost may have been a barrier to accessing services. They too could continue to receive their support in the comfort of their own homes. Which for us is where our work with dementia families started over 5 years ago, with Life Changes Trust and South Lanarkshire Health and Social Care Partnership as anchor funders to pilot an at-home service for people affected by dementia in South Lanarkshire. So to do this, we need to keep moving forward together. If you think the Haven can help you or someone you know, a loved one, a family member, a friend, anyone in your community, if you're a health, education or community professional and you'd like to share and learn with us, then please do get in touch. Thank you.
Many thanks to Brenda, Caroline and Louise, and indeed everyone at the Haven for supporting communities the way that they do across Lanarkshire and even a bit beyond that too, as we've heard this morning as well. Thank you so much for all that you do. We have one more film now, and this time it's from Alzheimer's Scotland. Anna Clements is a dementia advisor for Alzheimer's Scotland. She caught up with Ian and Eugene, both of who care for their wives who are living with dementia. They talk about the importance of peer support and being able to talk to other people who have shared their journey. They also talk about how they adapted to using online methods of support. Over to Anna.
Hello, my name is Anna Clements. I'm the South Lanarkshire Dementia Advisor with Alzheimer's Scotland, and today we're going to share some experiences of a couple of carers that we're supporting throughout the pandemic and before. We'll talk a little bit about that as we go. Obviously with the pandemic hitting us last year, things did change quite dramatically. We went completely digital, which was totally brand new for us, but something we will continue with as things open up again. And today we're going to hear from Ian Tomney and Eugene McIntyre about their experiences with Alzheimer's Scotland from before the pandemic and throughout as well. So we'll just ask some questions around the experience that you've had over the last year in the pandemic and that before, I suppose, as well, the input that you've had from us in Lanarkshire, Alzheimer's Scotland. So the question that I have is, what supports did you guys receive from us in Lanarkshire before the pandemic? And Eugene, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, well, I was introduced to Alzheimer's Scotland at Motherwell on a recommendation from our CPN. So we started attending the Monday drop-in, and I think my wife, Rosanna, took to it right away. She seemed to take part in most of the activities that were available without too much support from the girls, although they were mainly in the background to help and look after them. Meanwhile, the carers, we sat in another room. The carers, we sat in another room ourselves and had a cup of coffee and introduced each other and got to know a bit about each other. We spoke about each other's stories, and we built up quite a friendly group. And we actually looked forward then to going to the drop-ins. It was almost the highlight of the week at sometimes. And as I say, we built up good friendships. And since the pandemic, we still keep in touch. Most of us, if not directly, the ones that are in direct contact might be in contact with the other ones. So we all know how everybody's managing and coping, and we can offer some support to each other, whether it be over the telephone or over these meetings that we're having just now. But I don't think I would have coped as well as I have done without the support from Alzheimer's Scotland. They've been tremendous, absolutely tremendous. And I can't praise them highly enough, to be honest. That's about as much as I can say, I think.
Thanks for that, Eugene. That's lovely. Do you want to share a little bit of how you've been involved with this? You're involved in both Lanarkshire and Glasgow as well.
Yeah, the Glasgow advisor got me to get in touch with you, Lanarkshire, for Nancy about talking mats. That was our first visit up to Motherwell. And of course, we were incomers from Glasgow, but you very kindly brought us into the fold and pointed out, as I pointed out, Nancy was originally from Lanarkshire anyway, so we enjoyed that. And because of that, we contacted you, suggested we come to the cafe in Rutherglen, and that was excellent. That was our meeting with Lanarkshire folk. There's a similar cafe in Glasgow and one or two other things from Alzheimer's Scotland there as well. The good thing about that was that we were meeting other carers, and that's what I liked. Difference for me slightly now is that stopped for us 4 years ago, because as you know, Nancy is in bed. She has advanced dementia. She has carers coming in every day. So we lost that contact with carers, with other Alzheimer carers over the years. And what happened then with Alzheimer's Scotland was that Anna and the girl from Glasgow as well would pop into the house to see her. So that was the contact that I eventually had. We lost a very strong contact, a very full contact, to just people coming in now and again. So in many ways, life is not too much different, to be honest. That life is quite quiet, but the connection from Alzheimer's Scotland has always been very good and very strong. The main thing we missed was that link with other carers once I was just having to be in the house with Nancy as well.
Thanks for that, Ian. And I think that's something that always comes through, is that need for peer support. And speaking to other carers, and as both of you and Eugene have said, that it does make a difference when you're able to share your experience and your stories, I have to say. So my next question, and I'll start with yourself again, Eugene. You've kind of answered a little bit of it before then, but what kind of challenges have you experienced since lockdown started, and what kind of supports have you had there that have kind of helped you through?
Yeah, the challenges, I feel that through losing contact, face-to-face contacts, and taking part in the groups and the cafes, has been a real struggle at times. But almost immediately in lockdown, the Alzheimer's started these group calls, and I've enjoyed taking part. I'm glad I took part from the very start, and I think I would have been lost without it, to be honest, because we still get that support, although it's not physically there, mentally, I think the support is just as important. And I feel without it, I would really have been struggling.
What about yourself, Ian? Because I know you didn't come in, you weren't in with us straight from the start. You really joined us digitally, I suppose. What would that have been, about 4 or 5, 6 months? Oh, I'm not even really sure now, actually.
I think to a certain extent, because it wasn't such a vital change for me, you know, having gone through this situation where we no longer had contact socially or physically with other carers, that I only had contact with yourself and Ollie coming in to see Nancy. There wasn't just that immediate change. It became a situation where I think I realised we weren't able to speak to anyone because I didn't have other visitors coming in. When you offered this chance speaking in the group, I thought that was great. Again, I was beginning to be able to meet other carers. So that was the important thing for me. The challenge was actually, in a way, realising that I had to come out of this situation. The challenge that I would put actually to Alzheimer's Scotland is the fact that people who are in my situation with being a carer with advanced dementia, people are now just beginning to maybe realise what it's like. You know, people are now experiencing what we've experienced for 4 years. So there was that slight challenge of sort of feeling that people now were in the same situation, and it was actually good to be able to speak to them. And that was, I mean, the video links have been excellent. And as I say, I think that was the main thing. It took that wee while for me to really notice a major difference. But once you had been speaking to me, and especially once we've had the first couple of calls with the others, I realised just how much I'd been missing, and it was great to speak to other carers.
Yeah,
that's a big thing.
Fall into that way, don't you, of just kind of being so isolated as well. And I think, I mean, I suppose you two that we've got today, it usually ends up in rugby chat. Poor Ian sitting in the background going on again. But it's nice actually just having that opportunity to talk about something that's not within your everyday caring role and getting that little bit of break from.
Yes, but the important thing is you're talking with people who are in the same situation, the same background, and understand. I had that with somebody who did come to visit, just a lady we know locally had been in the same situation. I always felt her visits were much more worthwhile when it came to understanding what was happening. She still comes and speaks at the door. That's as much. So I think, although you're not talking about dementia with other carers, you have this common background, and there's always that common influence in what you're talking about, what you're thinking about. I think that's important.
Yeah. I find if maybe one of the group are struggling, you know, the others are there to offer support. We can empathise with everyone's predicament.
And I suppose that's another positive of digital life, I suppose, because before, whilst in North and South Lanarkshire everything was kind of running separate, while we had things in the centre that were always a kind of collaboration, but it's been nice people meeting across the boundary, I suppose, as well, and just making it so accessible. And even out with our call, we've got people that are linking in from all over Scotland, because you can, when it's digital, there doesn't have to be that kind of travel barrier there. You can just pitch in to whatever it is that you might find to be a support to you at the time as well.
I think the fact that you can have a group call and the fact that you're seeing people, I think Eugene hit that, you know, sometimes you can just look at somebody and think they're having a hard time this week. Just from the body language. And I think that's important. The video has been a godsend in this way.
So my last question, what one thing would you want your audience of people watching, whether that be the individual community, your organisations and your local decision makers, to know about your experience and what's helped you through?
Well, as I said before, these calls have been an absolute godsend. But we try, you probably know that some people, when they first join the groups, have struggled a bit. And we're quite happy to sit and listen even to people, offer advice and support as much as possible. I just wish, as I said, that more people could embrace this, because it is such a lifeline to me and to most of the people that are on the groups, that we have this support from each other. We can use each other like a crutch, basically. So these are absolute godsends. It's a great outlet for us, and I look forward to every call whenever they are.
Thanks, Eugene. What about yourself, Ian?
I think probably I've touched on it, but what has happened is that this situation we're all in has made people much more aware of the situation we were in for the previous 3 years. People understand it much more now, not just people from Alzheimer's Scotland, people from outside, just visitors. I think there's much more awareness, and because of that has come to a priority to everybody. It has then been a big thing that Alzheimer's Scotland and other groups I'm with as well have looked at using video, and that has been a big thing. I think all in, the awareness, the general awareness of the fact that a lot of effort has been put in at all levels to communicate, has made life so much better than it was a year ago at this time.
Yeah.
And having this access it means we can be there for you all the way through as well. And I think, as you say, it has highlighted the need to have other ways of communicating, whereas before we were quite comfortable in doing our kind of group visits, or it might be one-to-one visits, but this is just, we were forced into this position, but in actual fact it's such a benefit having this point of contact there. And I think,
but as you know yourself, you've experienced that on the Wednesday sport and music quiz, it is so much an outlet. We don't talk about Alzheimer's or not that it's banned from the call, but we just have so much fun on it. It's great.
It's a little
absolutely, it's absolutely great.
Change.
Yeah.
And just watching you graciously win every week,
and ungraciously lose.
There's a first for everyone, I tell you.
That's yeah.
Guys, I think we'll probably have went well and truly over our time.
Well, you have an editor.
That's it.
That's normal for our calls. We never shut up once we start.
Coffee, always. But thank you so much for taking the time. I really, really do appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys sharing your own experiences.
Many thanks to Anna, Eugene and Ian. That was wonderful to hear, and it's so clear that peer support plays a crucial role for anyone who's going through a challenging situation, and how being able to share your journey and story with someone can make such a huge difference. It's time now for another short break and another cuppa, again for 10 minutes. When we come back, Helen and I are handing chairing duties over to Margaret Brown from the Alzheimer's Scotland Centre for Policy and Practice at the University of the West of Scotland, and Margaret will take us through the Q&A section. Remember to put any comments in the chat section and any questions in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. Enjoy your break and see you in 10 minutes.
Hello and welcome back to everyone. I hope you all had a lovely break. I'm Margaret Brown and I'm the Deputy Director of the Alzheimer's Scotland Centre at the University of the West of Scotland. So my background is a nurse, and I was a community mental health nurse in Lanarkshire for many, many years before I went to teaching and researching at the university. So I'm a Lanarkshire girl, and I'm delighted to be chairing this discussion today. Before we begin, I'd like to call in my colleagues. So before we begin and introduce ourselves, I want to remind you all that the Lanarkshire storytelling sessions to date have involved those who support people with dementia and unpaid carers themselves. Just a wee reminder, as they mentioned earlier, that these sessions are underway but are still ongoing, and so we are still collecting input. Once it's been done, the Lanarkshire local priorities will be updated to reflect what they tell us matters to them, and we'll share that widely. So moving on with our question and answer today, I want to, well, I'll get the people in the panel to introduce themselves. And so, Agnes, what about you? Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi everybody, my name's Agnes and I work for Take Control South Lanarkshire, which is a self-directed support service, and I am the coordinator there. I started there in 2014, which was when the Self-Directed Support Act came into place. On a personal level, I am an unpaid carer for my son. My son has complex needs, and he, including sort of autism, and he has learning disability, and he has uncontrolled epilepsy. Now, with epilepsy, he does have memory issues associated with that. So I can empathise with some of those issues with people living with dementia. And also I did care for my mother-in-law who had dementia, who sadly passed away. Self-directed support, it's something that is, what is it? People call it SDS. Look, this is the sort of a term they talk about, SDS. And the simple way I suppose to explain it is that it's support that you direct yourself. There is 4 options to self-directed support, and in our job we will explain to people what those options are, and we can talk more about that when we're answering the questions and things as well. It's my personal experience that's led me to the job that I'm doing just now. My background is with carers, and I could talk about self-directed support all day. So I think if anybody does want to find out more information and more things about that, or more about, you know, what we've done, then please, you know, they can contact us. Thank you.
Lovely, Agnes. Thank you very much. What wide experience, so valuable. Thank you for being here. And Maria?
Hi there, hi folks. I'm Maria Williamson. I'm the manager of the Quality Assurance team based within North Lanarkshire's Health and Social Care Partnership. So my main involvement is about ensuring that we are commissioning and monitoring the kind of effectiveness of services across the partnership. I've been in post, my current post, for about 18 months. Prior to that, I was 20 odd years in the voluntary sector, so it's been a bit of a baptism of fire going back to public sector, I have to be honest. So really our involvement is working with our health colleagues and our social work colleagues and our commission services, just to make sure that we've kind of got a joined up approach, and actually we've got choice and quality services across North Lanarkshire.
Lovely, thank you, Maria. And Laura?
Hi there, my name's Laura and I work for North Lanarkshire Disability Forum. I've been with the Disability Forum since 2019. I'm a community connector, so we run a couple of different services, but the service I take part in is for people who are not yet eligible for self-directed support, and we try and find them community supports, and obviously given the current restrictions, things that are online. On a personal level, I'm also an unpaid carer for my gran who has mixed dementia, so everything that's been said today is relatable. It's my life, so yeah.
Lovely, thanks very much, Laura. It's good to have you here too. And we've met the other 2 members of our panel, Helen and Annette. Do you want to just say a brief hello and add anything else you want to add at the moment before we begin?
Hello, yeah, I think you've probably heard more than enough from me as well. Anyway, you know exactly who I am. Minister of St Andrews, and we offer a whole variety of different activities and support for people with dementia and their carers. Thanks.
Lovely. And Annette, do you want to say hello again?
Yes, hello again, and just a reminder of the role I'm playing here today. I'm a former unpaid carer. I live in West Lothian with my husband and children, and until recently I also cared for my father who lived in Lanarkshire.
Lovely, thank you so much. And not only have we these lovely women all smiling and ready to respond to questions, we've also got Anna Clements from Alzheimer's Scotland and Louise Garner from The Haven, who are offline at the moment but are going to pop in to answer anything specific you would want to ask. And you can, as a reminder, you can put your questions in the question and answer box or the chat box. I wanted to start with something that came in just as everybody was speaking, which I think is really quite important that we let people know about. And Helen, particularly for you, people are asking if the Carluke Centre and processes and offers are available beyond Carluke to people within Lanarkshire.
Yes, simply they are. Yeah, we welcome anybody. We don't have any boundaries. Annette's been along and she doesn't live in Carluke. Folk are welcome. They travel from all round Clydesdale, and yeah, occasionally we've had folk even crossing from North Lanarkshire into South Lanarkshire. But at the end of the day, we're Lanarkshire, and if we're closer to folk and they would like to come, they're very welcome.
Yeah, and I come from Shotts and she let me in too. It was fantastic, even from Shotts. And maybe Anna from Alzheimer's Scotland, do you want to come in and say about your group as well?
Yep. So sorry if there's a little bit of a lag just now. I'm experiencing some technical difficulties today. So our groups are all obviously online at the moment, and we're hoping to open back up again when the restrictions lift a little bit further. We have a variation of groups. We are the group that you witnessed on the video today was a couple of gents from our carers call. They take place a Monday, Wednesday and a Friday. We also have quizzes that are running throughout the week as well, along with carer education sessions that we're offering. So as I say, everything is online at the moment. These were all previously face-to-face, but we have been able to access people that maybe weren't able to attend anymore. So it has given us a little bit of ability to support people within their own home, and I think it's been great to highlight that because it means it is something we'll continue once the groups open up. So if anyone would like any information about the groups, I'm more than happy to give that across, and we can send you an invite. Everyone is welcome.
Very good. You might be inundated, both of you ladies. I hope you appreciate that. So we're going to move on to the panel questions now, and we have some questions for all of you. First of all, this one is around communities and the groups and organisations within them, so that applies to all of you. And we know the huge role you play in supporting people with dementia and unpaid carers. Now, priority one, as we heard earlier, shines a light on this, but also highlights a gap in the connections, particularly with statutory services. So could the panel share any examples of work underway to address this gap that others might learn from? You have heard of volunteering or being voluntold. So if you don't answer, you'll be picked upon. Right, Helen, go for it. Yeah.
One of the things that we do at St Andrews is we work quite closely with the community mental health team for older people. And for us, that's really important. It's always been a really important part of what we do. And we have had a little bit of discussion about hopefully being able to work even more closely and perhaps being able to offer the post-diagnostic support groups when we can move back into the hall again, and offering them on the premises so that that perhaps removes some of the barrier from having to go in somewhere new that a lot of people find so challenging. And I get that. It's not easy to go in when you don't really know anybody and you're a bit scared and you've got other issues there too. But I think there is an issue with how we can connect sometimes, and partly because of data protection and sharing information. And statutory services operate in a completely different way, obviously, from what we do within the community and the voluntary services there. And I do understand the frustrations that carers have, because sometimes just now they seem to get sent round a circle between trying to find a GP, speaking to a GP, and being asked to go somewhere else. They go somewhere else and they send them back to the GP, and and there's this big circle that goes on in this hamster wheel. And sometimes our role is simply to try and support carers and to encourage them to keep on going with that. Because it is an issue, and it has been an issue as well during the pandemic, of people getting assessments done and all of these kind of things from statutory services. And I understand they're really busy too, but if people have to wait like 8 months to be able to even kind of get onto the system, by the time they get there, they're not only exhausted, but often, and sadly, the person has really, really deteriorated, because people with dementia their condition can deteriorate really quickly, and circumstances change. So they might start off with something that's not, it's not a huge need, a particularly pressing need, but by the time they get there, they really need a whole lot of support. So I don't know whether any other panelists want to share, their experiences in that as well.
I mean, it sounds as if there's real challenges, but I think there's also what I love to hear there was that connection you had with statutory services as a human being, which is really what this is about too. Maria, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, it's just to say that Van Ale are one of our strategic partners, and we do fund quite a lot of services through the Community Solutions model, which is really about delivering services right in the heart of the community. And I think a couple of people have mentioned through sort of their presentations, obviously a lot of things have been sort of stepped back about or reshaped as a result of the pandemic. And as we're starting to get into recovery, us as a partnership, we're doing a lot of work about what these services look like and how we can step them back up. And they might be different going forward because there'll be lots of learning for people around kind of the journeys that we've been. There's still anxieties around for people going back into sort of crowded places. But Van Ale are a strategic partner, and we commission a number of services through the Community Solutions model, and I think that's a really good way of kind of keeping our communities engaged. We've got a number of kind of engagement forums. We've just in the process of refreshing our 21 to 24 engagement participation strategy, which is really about getting people's voices heard and using them in terms of how we shape our services going forward to make sure that we're meeting the needs of people that live within our communities. And we also commission carers services. So Lanarkshire Carers will do our adult carer support plans, provide support and provide that voice for carers, and part of our carer strategy group as well. North Lanarkshire Carers Together are the kind of campaigning and kind of engagement around that. So there's lots of really good initiatives going on across the partnership, and what we're doing is looking at what the last year has been for us and how do we come out of that and how do we do that as a collective. So
it sounds as if there's a lot of work going on, Maria, and I think you're right. It's this, we're moving out a very strange period and we already had lots of problems. And so it's these shining lights of people that are moving it forward that make such a difference, I think.
You're absolutely right. It's about being ambitious about it, and actually what was before might not be the way that it is going forward, but that might be right, you know. So it's about just making sure that the people that are involved in that are connected and feel that their voices are being heard, and we're just at the start of that journey, I think.
Oh, I think you're right, Maria, and I'm just looking at the next question actually leads into this, because it talks about personalised support, which is taking us back to the person, from the services to the person, and maybe this is for you probably too, Maria, and maybe for Agnes. It asks about, can you talk about how current approaches to personalised support need to or can improve the experience for people in Lanarkshire, given what priorities say about voices not being heard and people having to tell their story over and over again. I'm sure you've all got experience of this. Could we maybe start with Agnes and your background too?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I was going to say, just with sort of based on the last question, we're actually funded by the Health and Social Care Partnership, so we have very strong links with the social work and also with health. So, you know, as a voluntary organisation, I think people are more comfortable coming to us, but we do have very strong links with the partnership. We were asked to help them with the distribution of PPE for personal assistance, and also we're giving out lateral flow tests as well. So for people with self-directed support, there's a very specific area of support for people. It is very personal, and you know, going on to when you're talking about the personalisation with things, what we would do with anyone that we're supporting, we would encourage them to plan. We would encourage them to have a person-centred plan, to think about what is important to them, because every one of us is different, everybody's needs are different, and everybody's support is different. So we would encourage people to pull together a plan of sorts, to let anybody who was working with them know exactly who they were, and we would be happy. You know, there's lots of organisations out there who do the likes of that. For people with profound disabilities, PAMIS is a very good organisation, and they'll do a PAMIS passport. So if there was something like that that would be similar to someone with dementia, or looking for what's their interest, you know, it's interesting to hear Carol talking about the stories that she has written, those kind of things. If there's something, what makes that person tick? You know, this is the things that people need to find out, that information.
Oh, I think you're so right, Agnes, about that one. And what Maria, do you want to add a wee bit to that about that notion of this idea of people having to keep telling their stories and how we make it more focused on the person?
Yeah, I know, and it is a kind of a thing that we hear often. We've just refreshed our framework for our self-directed support model, which will include our care at home, which is about sort of guided self-assessments indicating individual budgets for people. And there's a element of, we look at the family rather than just the individual. So there's an element of the kind of carers needs and taking into account of that. And it is really about what's individual to them, so that they're directing and sort of choosing the type of supports. It's the kind of element of choice and control for them around that. And I know that our carer centres are looking at some sort of toolkits around trying to support people that their plan follows them, rather than them having to refresh their story on and over again. So it's the parts of that that are relevant that they choose to share and how they want to share it. So there's some really good work going on around that, but things of I think probably things for everybody has been different over the last year. Lots of things being stepped down, so it's about just gathering pace with some of the initiatives that were kind of in process before we kind of went into our initial lockdown.
Yeah, trying to move, we're back to that kind of restart again, aren't we, really? Laura, this must be right at the heart of what you do.
It is. We in the community, the first question I'll ask when I go out to meet somebody, or laterally on the phone, it's what would you like? What can I do to make your life that bit better, easier, simpler? And like that, when I see a lot of people in the chat are talking about having to tell their story over and over again, and when we refer somebody on, I will share as much of that story as I can for that person, because it brings you down having to tell the same story to 6 or 7 different people over and over. So it is something that at the Disability Forum we try and share that as much as possible, just to make it easier.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Laura. I'm sure you do a grand job with that as well. I'm just thinking too, Annette, as a family carer, you must have many stories to tell about that one. And well, maybe just give us your thoughts on how, on the positive aspects, what could we be doing to make this better?
Yeah, well, from my point of view, every organisation that I spoke with, the information was definitely disjointed. So if I was speaking with my dad's GP, or CPN, or social worker, or his care provider, because my dad received care at home, he had a care package. Nobody had all of the information. Nobody had a complete package of what are my dad's needs, what's his story, but also for me, as you say, as the unpaid carer. Everyone had their own bit of information which was relevant to them and the role that they were providing, not the overall picture. Also for me, as a carer in West Lothian, caring for someone in South Lanarkshire, I didn't know where I belonged. Was it West Lothian? Was it South Lanarkshire? And a positive example is that at one of the St Andrews drop-in sessions, I spoke with a lady from the South Lanarkshire carers who told me about the carers of West Lothian. I wasn't even aware that the carers of West Lothian existed. And she proactively got in touch with the West Lothian carers on my behalf, and they got in touch with me. They were the ones who got in contact, and they arranged a day and a time for me to go in and have a chat and get registered as an unpaid carer. And I think that's a good example of cross-community and cross-regional support for an unpaid carer. And what I liked best about that example is that it was done proactively. I didn't have to take on another job of going out and seeking support. The support came to me.
Annette, thank you. That's really what we hear this morning all the way, isn't it, about that reaching out and stretching out for other people to give them help rather than waiting for that. I want to move on a wee bit, not very far away, but to self-directed support. There's a question about self-directed support, but I also see something in the chat about people who would like to receive self-directed support but live without family carers with dementia, which I think is, again, another layer of complexity. So the question is, why do so many people have difficulty accessing self-directed support? Is it lack of knowledge, or is it made more difficult? Maybe Agnes would like to start this argument and discussion off.
I think the difficulty is you don't know what you're looking for until you're in that situation. So I think, you know, the more knowledge that people can be given, then the better. So, you know, that's what we would do at Take Control South Lanarkshire. We would provide people with as much information as we can, with their rights and responsibilities if they want to become an employer or whatever it is that they want to do. We will take them, you know, we will take them from the start of the journey right through to the end. And if they want to, you know, if it's just different organisations or people that they can link in with, part of the funding that we had from the Support in the Right Direction was for a development worker. And that the development worker, very similar to the work that Laura does in North Lanarkshire, they have a mapping exercise. So we have a whole load with quite an extensive list of places which is people could link into, whether they wanted to visit or go. And I know it's very difficult just now because we are in, you know, we're in the situation we're in just now with COVID. But as we come through this recovery, and certainly with things being online, it makes it open to more people because we can cross those boundaries a lot better. I live in North Lanarkshire. I'm not far from you, actually, Margaret. I'm over beside television transmitters. So we are, I live in North Lanarkshire, but I work in South Lanarkshire, so I can see the differences that are made. And sometimes even just the terminology that people use, I think sometimes even just that bit of a postcode lottery, depending on where you live, the different support that you have. I am hoping, I certainly live in hope that with the talk of this National Care Service, that things may come in more in line and people will have a better service and it will be more uniformed throughout the country.
Great stuff. And Laura, you have a lot to do with this as well, I imagine.
Couldn't find the unmute button there, sorry. Yeah, we again, part of our funding, especially part of mine, is again through the Support in the Right Direction. But like that, we're there to educate and support people through the self-directed support process. So if somebody comes to us and asks, do you know, I'm struggling, I would like to be assessed, how do I go about it? We can guide them through it. And we can be there for the whole journey, we can be there just at the start. It's obviously dependent on the person and the support that they need. A lot of the time it really is just about educating people through their options and just chatting through it, because it's complicated. Even now, I've been doing it for 2 years and there's still things that I need to go, wait a minute till I think about it, because it's complicated. So if you're doing that in your caring role and you're stressed, or you know, you are coming having the effects of your dementia and you're struggling, then it is very hard going. But we are there if somebody needs that.
Yeah, it's you wonder how difficult this needs to be, and it is a complex process. So I suppose we do have to tease that out. Yeah. I'm conscious of the time, and I don't want anybody chasing us. But there is a question I think a lot of people would like answered. Is Priority 4 talks of the impact for unpaid carers and how caring affects their sense of self and independence. As we move out of this pandemic period, what would be important? What would we take with us and would we build on as we move out of this pandemic period? And I suppose I would want to speak to a carer, and I know many of you are carers, but Annette's here particularly for that. Annette, what about you? What will we take out of this period of pandemic?
So before the pandemic, I found support from St Andrew's Church for both myself and my dad through the drop-in. And I could take my dad to the Friday afternoon drop-ins on occasion. Through the drop-in, my dad attended some outings, for example, a Christmas pantomime and a day trip to the Summerlee Museum of Scottish Industrial Life in Coatbridge. This support was hugely beneficial to me as well as my dad, because I knew he was happy, he was in familiar company. He was collected and dropped back off home, so I knew he was safe. And those were times when I could take off my carer's hat. There was a bit of a weight lifted, and I could spend some guilt-free time for myself. Of course, when the pandemic hit, all of these kinds of support were withdrawn. I spent even more time with my dad, keeping him company, checking on his welfare, because he was even more isolated than before. So 2020 was really hard for carers, and still is. As we move out of lockdown, I think carers are going to emerge quite battered, bruised and exhausted because of everything that we've gone through. Carers are going to need practical and emotional support to help them move forward with their loved ones living with dementia, because our loved ones have spent so long away from their old routines that it might not be as simple as just picking up again from where we left off. And as has already been said, it's likely that things are not going to look the same in the future as they previously were anyway. So the people living with dementia are going to need support from their carers and their communities to adjust. And I think that organisations in the community need to take a proactive approach in seeking out carers to offer this support, as I said previously, rather than the carers having to find that, because, as I said before, it's another job for a carer to have to do. Carers are going to need the support more than ever.
I think you're absolutely right, Annette, and just very briefly, I'm not going to say any more because I think you've said most of that, but for Helen, there is something about how organisations are now going to come out of the pandemic. There's been lots of digital support, but there's also been issues around digital poverty where people didn't have digital access, and all the people who haven't had that access over this period. Do you have anything, Helen, you want to add about what the organisations need to do in this next time and period?
Just really to back up what Annette said, exactly, we need to be there and be listening, and to people to have that listening ear and that facility and to listen and allow people to express what's happened. There needs to be space for that, and to be able to find different ways of doing that. I mean, we're looking at having music sessions along with Acorn Music Shed to be able to allow people to express the feelings that they've had of visiting through the window. That's been such an experience for people, and even digitally we look through square or rectangular windows at people these days. And also to provide some Heart for Art, to provide some art therapy. So we're looking at developing a Heart for Art, a carer space, and hopefully we get some funding to be able to do that. And we're going to start that hopefully fairly soon, just to provide emotional outlets for people. I think also, as Annette said, it's really important to try and get people back together whenever we can, and that might need to be initially outside in smaller groups, you know, with whatever we can, because even just being outside is so important. Two carers just said to me last night from the short dementia friendly walk we've got on a Friday, we've only had a few people, we're just moving things gradually forward in line with restrictions, but that both carers had then experienced the fact that their loved one spoke more, and that they said that they felt better, that their mood was a bit better, and it just highlights the importance of being able to be outside. And so, you know, I think anything we can do about that, and just to provide a wee bit of support for carers and a listening ear is going to be so important. And if to begin with that's outside, well, even if it's in this wonderful Scottish weather that we have, put on our raincoats and get the brollies out and do what we can really to help and support and give carers a bit of respite, because that's hugely needed now. Hugely needed.
Even we had snowing shorts last week, so in May. So yeah, we've got a lot to cope with. I'm going to draw this to a close. Much as I'd like to carry on for a long time. We've got more questions that we couldn't possibly get to, but I'm sure that we'll be able to answer over time. But I'd love to thank you for joining me, girls. Laura, Helen, Maria, Annette and Agnes, you've been fabulous. I also want to thank Louise and Anna, because I know they were standing by offline there for us in case there was anything, and there was, but we couldn't get to it, girls. We'll get you after. I'd like to say goodbye and thank you, and I hope you have a really good day. It's been uplifting all day, and I think that's a good thing to take away with us. That was a great session. I so enjoyed it, and I hope you did too, and I hope you've got something from some of the responses from our panel. So next, I'm very happy to welcome a colleague and friend of mine, Arlene Crockett from the Life Changes Trust, who's going to talk about the Trust's Small Grants programme and a little bit about the next steps following today's event. Arlene, I'm going to hand over to you, and thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a wonderful day. I'm really feeling so good having heard all that wonderful work.
Okay, everyone, so hello again from me, and again, just echoing what Margaret has said, a huge thanks to you all for joining us today. It's been a fantastic morning so far, so much learning there, so much connections been made. The chat has been going at a pace. I and my colleagues are trying to keep up with that and answer as much as we can, but we'll pick up on a lot of that in the post-event email as well. I hope that we've stimulated your thinking, and I hope that we've sparked some of those ideas in relation to plans for the future, particularly as we are all looking at recovery coming out of this very difficult year. So before I talk more about the impact of the event, there's just a few things I want to say about the small grants programme that's live at the moment. As part of the regional events that we host and have hosted since 2018, we also launch a small grants programme, and that programme is for each area and the groups and organisations in each area to be offered some money to develop some support in that local area. That could be support that's already happening, so they may want to add value to already what's there, or it might be to spark a new idea and to get it going. This, the grants offer between £2,000 and £15,000 for projects to apply for, and the support can be something that lasts up to kind of the 18 months timeline, and hopefully something that would continue beyond the lifetime of the grant. As I say, it's live just now, and applications are opened until 5 o'clock on the 28th of May. And our funding staff are standing by for your email inquiries, telephone inquiries, whatever they may be. We did hold a Zoom online kind of funding surgery a couple of weeks ago, and I know from funding staff this is well attended. So there's many of you I know at the moment developing your ideas and applications. We then take all of the applications after closing, and we then host a local panel. And that local panel's responsibility is to then assess and make decisions on who is awarded those grants. The Trust will oversee that, but the decisions remain at a local level by local partners, and there'll be more information coming about that very, very soon. As part of our investment in Lanarkshire, we also fund a network coordinator role, so that we are giving those awardees who are successful the opportunity to be connected. That connection, as we've said, is always the really important thing, to share learning and to look at how that then widens across the area. So there will be an opportunity at some point for us to appoint an individual or an organisation to become or to play that part in terms of that network role, and more information will come later around that as well. So still a couple of weeks left. If you're wanting to apply for a grant, then go onto our website, into our funding page. I think maybe one of the staff will maybe share the link in the chat if you can, so that if you don't know about it, then you can get some more information and get applying. I want to just take a minute or two just to talk about the real impact from the event this morning, based on our experiences so far with the regional influencing that is part of our focus at the Trust. This event has brought Lanarkshire together. I live in Lanarkshire, and I've also worked in Lanarkshire many, many years ago, and I know that often there was support in North Lanarkshire and there was support in South Lanarkshire, but sometimes there was not often that coming together and things to be done across a pan-Lanarkshire approach. So it's been brilliant for us to see at the Trust that through the planning of this event and through today's delivery, that this has been a pan-Lanarkshire approach, and everybody's got on board and really made any great effort to make this a really successful session. So we thank you for that. It's offered everybody the opportunity to listen, to learn, and to plan together. And the early session around the storytelling sessions and the feedback from Dan really demonstrated what people experience and how safely they can then share that experience through the power of storytelling, and then the impact that has on some of the priorities that then have been developed. And again, just to say, there is more to be adapted with those priorities once we finalise our sessions with people with dementia. We've done that, we've learned, we've shared, and now we should be starting to think about, right, What do we need to do to realise those priorities? How do we need to work together to make that happen? And that's my call to action to you all today. There will be something either individually or as part of the group or organisation that you work for that you will be starting to think, right, okay, we do that, but we could do that better, or we do that well, we need to share that with other people, or there's a big gap in our approach and we need to look at how we address that. So start to think about that, and my call to action is for everybody to take something away from this event and to do something with it. At the Trust, we will do as much as we can with the local partners that we work with to support and share some of the successes from previous events and the impact that they have had, because it's important that the priorities are not a moment in time, that they are start of the conversation. This is not the end of the Lanarkshire event. This is in fact the beginning of the learning and the collaboration moving forward. It was really interesting actually to hear from Maria from North Lanarkshire talk about, you know, plans and discussions around recovery from the pandemic, around partnership, around keeping the momentum going, around that online offer and how that adapts and from communities has taken place, because we want to see what has been learned over the last year to keep going and not to be forgotten. It was great to hear about the community solutions work that's going on, and it'll be good to hear how the priorities and what people have said as their experiences will really influence some of that work moving forward, particularly when there's been a refresh of the engagement and participation strategy. And I'm sure it'll be something similar in South Lanarkshire as well, because the priorities can and should influence all of the work moving forward. Around SDS, it was great to hear from Agnes and from others around the great support that is happening for people across Lanarkshire. And it was also good to hear about some of the changes that are taking place and some of the discussions around really getting to the heart of that individual experience and around individual budgets. Fiona has shared on the chat a learning report that the Trust has on our website off the back of funding that we offered to people over a number of years, where the focus was individual awards. So there's a lot of learning to the benefits of that around process, around support, and around the real impact of people actually managing things on their own. So it'll be good to see that learning being taken forward as well. These events in other areas have had huge impact. The priorities have had huge impact. We've had people and partners in Orkney now very much use the priorities at the heart of their local dementia strategy and how they take and change work moving forward. The same it can be said for Aberdeenshire. I actually had a chat about that yesterday with some partners, and there's work evolving and developing all the time. We've already connected with Fife after their event and also East Lothian after the event later last year. And just had a call yesterday actually in relation to some work going on in Angus off the back of the Tayside event in April. So these events are really proven to really get to the heart of that engagement and participation, and really are giving health and social care partnerships, communities and individuals themselves the tools to really look at how they influence change moving forward, particularly as we come out of this pandemic. So lots of positive things, but lots of work to do as well. So that call to action is real, and that call to action is for everybody. So before I take my leave and move on and pass back to our wonderful co-chairs, Annette and Helen, I just want to pay my own tribute and my own thanks to both Annette and Helen for the fantastic job that they've done today co-chairing this event. We have learned so much from people with lived experience and how this has been done, and the impact that this has for them, but also for us at the Trust. So it's wonderful to see us continuing to do that event on event. But I also want to pay tribute as well to Carol and Malcolm Topper. Carol was going to co-chair alongside Annette, but unfortunately, due to a last minute change in her personal circumstances, couldn't be with us today. So we send Carol and Malcolm their best wishes. And again, just a huge thanks to all the effort that all of them have put in to making this such a successful day, as well as all our partners and everybody that's been involved in the planning of this event. So big thank you again from everyone at the Life Changes Trust for joining us today. And I'm now going to hand back to those superb co-chairs that I mentioned, Helen and Annette, for some closing remarks. So over to you both. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arlene, for all of that information, which was really helpful. And I know some of that will be followed up as time goes on, if folk exchanging information over email or phone calls or whatever. And hopefully it's been a really helpful time together for everybody. I know a lot of really positive comments have come into the chat. And so thank you very much for all of those. And hopefully we can continue to work together in Lanarkshire. To build on what's already there and to improve the services and to make better lives for people living in Lanarkshire. We also want to say thanks to Margaret Brown for chairing our Q&A session. As usual, Margaret brings her wonderful smile and her humour and her warm personality to share with us, and obviously she works in the Lanarkshire area as well, so she brings a lot of experience. So thank you very much for that, Margaret. And many folk will know you, but if they don't, now they do, and hopefully they can also learn from University of West of Scotland too. So we're now at the end of our conference for today. It's been a real pleasure for me and for Annette and Margaret to chair, and we hope that everyone has enjoyed it and will take something away from it today. And I'm sorry too that Carol couldn't be with us today to be able to share with Annette. You've missed out on her wonderful headgear that she would have loved to share with you, and her stories and her big smile. So I'm sorry about that too, but we wish them both, Carol and Malcolm, well, and hand over to Annette as well for her to be able to say goodbye as well. But from myself, thank you very much for sharing today. It's been a wonderful experience for all of us together.
Thanks, Helen. We would like to thank all of our speakers and all of our panel members today. We're very grateful for all the work you're doing and for taking the time to join us today. Thanks to the Life Changes Trust for hosting this event and for continuing to support local communities to create better lives. Thanks again, everyone. Goodbye.